Good morning. It is Thursday, April 4th, 2024. My name is Eric Wiedeke. You can follow me on Twitter /X at Eric Wiedeke. It's going to be a short video today talking about the Marlins and their winless, whopperless week to start the season, an 0-7 start for the Fish. First in franchise history. And we're going to look at number one, what has gone wrong, and number two, why national media is already talking fire sale for this Marlins ball club. So to kind of bring through the long and the short of it, the Marlins have been bad to start this season, to state things really kind of as simply as possible. No, this isn't a club that came into the season with expectations of being cataclysmically bad. This was a team that I think a lot of people expected, had a chance to push towards 500 on the season. To win anywhere between 75 to even on the high end 85 games. You looked at what you had on paper between Luis Ariz, Jesus Luzardo, Tanner Scott, some of these guys that are on the roster right now, and you said, well, this team might be pretty good. But that has not come to fruition. As a matter of fact, what you've seen is you've got an offense that was half dependent on Jorge Soler, being healthy for the second time in his career to have a full season and give you quite literally the second best season of his career by far. Not that I think he would have necessarily replicated that had he re-signed in Miami, because of his career kind of being a story of up and down. And then the other half of your offense relied on Luis Ariz pushing 400 for half the season. And obviously that's not all to it. There are other guys that can contribute and have contributed, but really those are two major factors. And now you're without Soler, and you didn't replace him in the order with any kind of power. Luis Ariz has struggled to start the season. Jazz has struggled to start the season. Pretty much the entire lineup up and down, sans Jake Berger, has struggled to start the season. The starters, you're relying on guys like Ryan Weathers and AJ Puck. And I know what I said about AJ Puck potentially being an all-star. I still stand by it on the talent front. But the results have not been there to this point for Puck. And the Marlins are not going to be good enough to have more than one all-star on this team. So, and I know that wouldn't be him. So that's probably not happening. Harkening back to that. But the entire pitching staff, Jesus Luzardo has been okay. Max Meyer gave you a decent start in his first start. Trevor Rogers, I think despite the defense, and that's something we're going to talk about that. I think his start was okay, minus that. I think AJ Puck's second start minus the defense was okay. But the defense is part of what has made this team just awful. I mean, we looked at this team as a bad defensive team last year, but it's really kind of taken a turn for the worse this year. The last year just wasn't as noticeable. I mean, sure, you had guys running into each other, colliding, what have you, but some of the errors that you've seen in the early part of this season and the defensive positioning even has been awful. I mean, you look at Vidal Brujan letting a ball go through the right through the wickets. And again, on an individual basis, it's not the end of the world, but it's happened so much in the first 7 games of the season for this team. And they're completely struggling. The entire bullpen has taken a step back. You're looking at guys like Scott and Soriano and Nardi, who were cornerstones in this bullpen last year. And suddenly they completely regressed from their 2020, from who they were in 2023 to who they were prior to, or worse than that even. So it feels like everything's gone wrong with this team, and it leaves people wondering, is another fire sale on the horizon? Are they going to punt this season away? And I think that if you read the tea leaves, I think that it's coming with this ball club. And I know that it's going to sound like an overreaction, but I think that it's honestly coming with this club. They trade John Birdie away for prospects the day before the regular season. That's strike one. Strike two, they didn't add in the offseason to this ball club, really, meaningfully. I mean, they add Tim Anderson and Christian Bethancourt, but what are those additions really to this ball club? No disrespect to Tim Anderson, he's been an all-star, but Tim Anderson is not taking the Marlins from 0-7 to 90-72. It's just not happening. Sure, you say, well, they can get their starters back, but I say to you, if you look at April's schedule, you have starting today, you have 3 in St. Louis, 3 in New York to play the Yankees. You come home and you get the Braves for 3. Then you get the Giants for 4. That's your next 13 games. And considering that your first 7 that you went 0-7 were Pittsburgh and the Angels, if this team does not almost have a complete 180 in their level of play, they are not going to have a successful next 13 games. I mean, this is a team that could win 4, 5 of those games in a nightmare scenario. And if you do, you're looking at 0-7, let's say 4-9. You're looking at 4-16 to start the season. At that point, you really are done. You can't get out of April 10 games under 500 and expect the season to go anywhere this year. That's got to be the number one priority, and it's a tall task for this team considering the schedule upcoming at this point, and considering how far away certain guys still are. I mean, Edward Cabrera is pitching in AAA, but he might get 1 or 2 more turns around the rotation there. Braxton Garrett hasn't started a rehab assignment yet, so he's probably going to be later in April than sooner. Yuri Perez probably isn't ready until May, maybe even June. So you're looking at, help is coming, but it's might be too little too late at that time. And you've already got national writers. You had Ken Rosenthal yesterday putting out a piece in The Athletic talking about another rebuild potentially being in the cards for the Marlins, detailing things like the Padres' interest in guys like Luis Ariz and Jesus Luzardo and some of the guys that potentially could get moved on this ball club. And we'll go into more detail as far as players that could go in. But as far as a rebuild being on the horizon for this team, unfortunately, it is the case. You're going to see talent moved off this team in the coming months. I know that it sounds hyperbolic, and I'll wear the egg on my face if I'm wrong and they go on an 8-game win streak and we're looking at this ball club completely differently in a week and a half. But going off of what my eyes have seen in the first week of the season and reading the tea leaves and how this organization's been run over the last 3-4 months, I have no indication to believe otherwise. I think that another fire sale is coming. And my only hope is that they rip the Band-Aid off sooner rather than later, because you need to shift from, oh my God, this situation is really bad, into kind of being able to traffic some kind of hope here relatively quickly. And I think that only comes in the form of, hey, look at all these prospects that we got for XY deal, what have you. You need to have something to show for the future. I don't know the extent of the rebuild that it'll be, if it's going to be like a retool and get ready for 25 when Sandy's back, or if it's, hey, we need to build this thing from the ground up and it's going to be a 4 or 5 year project. I'm not sure which direction they plan on going. All I know is that through 7 games, maybe a record, I can surely say, number one, this is at least going to be a disappointing season for much of the fan base. And number two, this is probably going to be a season in which we see an exodus of talent here in Miami for longer term prospects, potentially to get right next year, the year after, what have you. So that was my take 5. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next week. My name is Eric Wiedeke. As always, you can follow me on Twitter /X at Eric Wiedeke. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on the video. Helps grow the channel here at 5 Reasons Sports. Also, if you guys do use Prize Picks outside of the state of Florida, be sure to use promo code 5. That's FIVE for an initial deposit match up to $100 on Prize Picks. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.